Hey everybody, this is James.
Nabil.
And Mikey.
And this is the Movie Pals Podcast, podcast number 195. Today we are continuing our voyage into Star Trek with the start of the Kelvin timeline with a review of the 2009 film Star Trek, followed by a review of the new 4K Criterion remaster of Godzilla vs. Biollante. Let's get into it. So, Voyage into Star Trek here. We have reached now the reboot slash another timeline phase, I guess, guys, is the way to look at it.
Kelvin timeline, as they call it.
Yes.
I wonder why.
I'm not actually quite sure, actually.
It's the name of the ship. That's why.
Oh, that's why they based it. Oh, because of the alternate. I never even thought about that.
Because it wasn't supposed to go down, so they called it Kelvin timeline.
So that's why they called it Kelvin timeline. That actually makes sense.
Spoiler alert, everybody. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the movie came out 16 years ago. This point. So like, yeah.
Well, we know one listener who's really excited about watching this film with us. So yeah, sorry if I spoiled it for you ahead of time. John.
Really? Who was that? Oh, yeah. Sorry, John. He'll probably hear this too.
Very excited about it.
Brother's not a big Star Trek fan, and he cannot wait for us to finish up this segment and start a new one. Which he doesn't know. It's just going to be the original Star Trek series, and we're going to go through every single episode.
Every series, starting with the original one, and then going all the way to
the Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus
all the bonus ones. And we're going to just break it down and just give him what he wants.
Episode by episode. This is going into perpetuity, guys.
Yeah, I'll be doing this until I'm in my 50s. So good luck. No, but we have been reviewing all the Star Trek motion films. We are now on to the 11th film in the franchise, Star Trek. And we have some behind-the-scenes facts of it before we jump into our review of it. So let's get into it. Production and direction. J.J. Abrams wasn't originally a Star Trek fan. He grew up more into Star Wars. You think? When he signed on to direct, he wanted to make Star Trek feel bigger and more action-packed, giving it a blockbuster energy that previous films didn't have. His vision helped attract a new audience, but also sparked debate among longtime Trek fans. The USS Enterprise was redesigned to feel sleeker and more modern. The production team took inspiration from Apple products and sports cars, even consulting Apple's Jonathan Ive for a futuristic, minimalistic look. While some fans loved the upgrades, once again, others felt it strayed too far from the classic design. Let's talk about the casting and the characters. Leonard Nimoy's return as Spock Prime was one of the film's most emotional elements. He had turned down previous offers to return to Star Trek, but this script convinced him, as it felt like a meaningful way to pass the torch to a new generation. His involvement helped bridge the gap between the original series and this reboot. Chris Hemsworth, now famous as Thor, made his Hollywood debut as George Kirk. His brief but powerful performance in the opening scene set the tone for the film's emotional stakes. Interestingly, before Chris Pine was cast as Captain Kirk, J.J. Abrams had considered Matt Damon, but ultimately decided to go with a younger, lesser-known actor.
Behind the camera and visual effects. The Starfleet Academy scenes were filmed at California State University Northridge, which was digitally enhanced to look futuristic. This was one of many real-world locations used in the film to ground its sci-fi setting in reality. J.J. Abrams became notorious for his excessive use of lens flares in Star Trek. He later admitted he went overboard, but his goal was to make the film feel visually dynamic. Love them or hate them, the lens flares became a signature of his style.
Yeah, they are pretty.
I remember
a lot in this one.
It is heavy with the lens flare.
There are times even I was watching, I put my hand up, I was like, oh, God. A little bright.
Too much flare. The destruction of Vulcan was one of the most intense moments of the film. The black hole effect was based on real physics simulations, similar to what would later be used in Interstellar. It was the first Star Trek film to feature such scientifically accurate depictions of black holes.
Yeah. And did you know this is the only Star Trek movie to ever get an Academy Award for makeup?
This got an Academy Award?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Academy Award winning Star Trek 2009.
Wow.
What did it win for?
Makeup.
Ah, okay. All right.
They advertise that more.
Spockies was so good. How do they look so realistic? Or the green girl. She's green. So, all right, let's jump into our review of Star Trek 2009.
Enlist in Starfleet. You will experience fear. Fear in the face of certain death.
Pull your chute!
We received a distress call. I
been waiting for this day my whole life. This day of reckoning.
We've got no captain and no first officer to replace him.
Yeah, we do.
Star Trek 2009 currently sits at a 94% Rotten Tomato score. There's still potential for it to get a little higher, guys, if you keep watching and reviewing it. So, work on that.
16 years, right? I mean, hey, we'll see.
We got time. The synopsis is James T. Kirk, a reckless but brilliant cadet, joins Starfleet and clashes with the logical Vulcan, Spock. When a vengeful Romulan named Nero uses time travel to destroy planets, including Vulcan, Kirk and Spock must overcome their differences to stop him. With guidance from an older Spock from the future, they take command of the USS Enterprise, forging the legendary crew that will explore the final frontier. This film was directed by J.J. Abrams. Some of the films you might know that he's done. He did the Mission Impossible 3, 2006, Super 8 back in 2011, the sequel to this, Star Trek Into Darkness, and also the rebooted continuation, I should say, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This was
It's before we knew.
He has a way. He helps things move it along, but he can't, see it through.
Good start to things, just...
Yeah. This is written by Robert Orci, who did The Island back in 2005, The Legend of Zorro, Transformers, and Cowboys and Aliens, as well as Alex Kurtzman, who did People Like Us, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and The Mummy back in 2017.
Yeah, and actually, Roberto Orci just passed away last month. So,
Oh, wow.
R.I.P. Roberto. This film was based on a television series Star Trek, of course, by Gene Roddenberry, and the original film was released on May 8th of 2009. It had a budget of $150 million and a box office of $385.7 million. So I'd say a modest success.
I was going to say something. It's not amazing, but I think it's just Star
enough
Trek's
to
never
justify a sequel.
popular as Star Wars.
With a big star cast, we have Chris Pine as James Tiberius Kirk, Zachary Quinto as Spock, Leonard Nimoy comes in again as Spock Prime, Carl Urban plays Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy, Zoe Saldana plays Nyota Uhura, Simon Pegg plays Montgomery Scotty Scott, John Cho plays Hikaru Sulu, Anton Yelkin plays Pavel Chekhov, rest in peace, Eric Bana plays Captain Nero, Bruce Greenwood is Christopher Pike, Ben Cross plays Sarek, who's Spock's father. Winona Ryder's in this film as Amanda Grayson, who plays Spock's mother, and Chris Hemsworth, as we mentioned at the top, plays James T. Kirk's dad, George Kirk.
To start things off here, let's go over our history with the film. James, what's your history with Star Trek 2009?
I actually saw this in theaters, so this is the first Star Trek movie out of any Star Trek film that I actually saw in theaters. I remember seeing the trailers for this leading up to it. It was like a really big push for how clean it looked, and like it was like a totally new, like, hey, this is a reboot, and I was like, okay, I gotta go check this out. So I'm pretty sure this is the movie why I went, like, during this time period is probably when I went and saw all the original motion picture films, just because there was no way I was going to catch up on the TV show. So I was like, let me at least watch the movie. So it was around this time period. I was in community college at Solano that I probably watched them all. So
Nice. Nabil, how about yourself?
I also saw this in theaters. I was stoked to see this film because I was always a big fan of Star Trek, and I had mixed feelings at the time of the original Star Trek movies and was really excited to see this reboot. And yeah, it was well worth watching in the theater. I do remember having a thing about the lens flare when I was saying it. I was like, I don't understand why this keeps happening. Is that like a camera trick? What's going on? But
it was like a running joke, I remember. Because I remember Mission Impossible 3, there was a lot of lens flare there too.
Yeah. And I just felt like, okay, it must be a signature thing of the director. But I remember like being
by the time you get to Super 8, you're like, oh, okay, so yeah, he just does this. Okay. You're like, I gotta wear sunglasses in the theater to watch these movies.
Yeah. How about yourself, Mikey?
Yeah, I saw this one in theaters as well. I've seen it a couple times since then because my dad didn't go see me in the theater with me, so I ended up rewatching it with him a couple times since then. So I've seen it a couple times, and it was just a good experience. I remember being kind of excited about it because my dad had been watching a lot of Star Trek stuff, and so I'd seen a lot of it, and I just was willing to see what this new kind of Star Trek was going to be.
You're like, look, it's less corny. Cool, right?
Right.
Well, before we get into some of the more specific stuff, let's just kind of jump in briefly. Just what are your thoughts about the movie, and just did you like it? Did you not? James, do you want to start?
I really like this one, guys. This one's probably up there, top of the list for me now. I forgot how good of a movie this was. And I think it does a good job of mixing, like modernizing Star Trek. Because I had always, even as a kid, it's hard not to compare it to Star Wars because I grew up watching Star Wars. And it's one of those things where just seeing this, it amps up a lot of stuff. I think the action's a lot better. The special effects are good. I think it's an all-star cast. I still like that they do have connections to the original Star Trek show as well, / movies, I guess. And it's not like throwing everybody to the curb. It's kind of like, hey, this still exists within its own thing, but it's almost like a multiverse movie before multiverse stuff got really popular.
Yeah, yep. I was saying the same when we were watching it,
which is kind of cool. So I don't feel like it should alienate too many people, but I love that it was a new, fresh take, and I had a blast watching this.
Yeah, nice. Nabil, how do you feel?
I love that the Romulans are perpetually the bad guys, like forever. They just fucking suck. No, I mean the film was they're just terrible people apparently. No, the film was great. I loved watching seeing this take of it, making it feel like even going through like what we were going through from the other films, like you could see the blockbusteriness of this film. Like they made it kind of the big fight scenes, the big sci-fi effects. Like it felt like you wanted the other films to feel like. They just put in that time and money into it, and I like that a lot of the characters from the original Star Trek films that we were watching got a lot more time to shine in other ways. Like it wasn't just kind of retreading what we already know about them from this 7 films we were watching through them. We got to see a little bit more expanding on them because they're all really young and going into it, whereas the movies start with them already an established crew. So I like to see that dynamic too. So there's a lot of good things that this film brings in that helps develop the characters further on things that you might already know, but haven't been exposed to because we're seeing them kind of as fresh-faced in the series.
I got to say, J.J. Abrams did a great job on casting, man. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
This, even like, I mean, Star Wars, just he had a vision starting with that too. So it's hard not to compare those two movies, by the way, just because how things happened, especially during the time period. I remember how these released, and he did the casting in this movie is great.
Yeah. And I'm kind of touching on what Nabil and kind of you guys said already is I really like how this feels fresh. Like, it's the same characters. They have some of the same characteristics, but they took a little spin on it, or, you can kind of tell it's the same start, but they're not finishing the same area, and they still have a lot of the same characteristics there. And I really like that aspect of it because, like Nabil said, it's kind of like you're getting a new beginning for the same character.
Yeah.
And I am not one that likes multiple dimensions or time travel and those kind of things, but I think this movie actually handles it pretty well because it's almost like it's just there, but they don't really kind of dive into it. They just said, "Oh yeah, this is happening," and they just kind of mention it.
That's kind of like all the Star Trek films, though, where I brought this up before, and Nabil told me like, or you guys have told me like, they just time travel is like you just got to go with it. Like everyone knows you can just kind of do it for some reason. Like, isn't that blowing anyone else's mind? I guess no. Okay,
it's just a thing.
Yeah, you can just do it.
I feel like they handled it well, though. It's like there's movies that try to do too much with it, and this one doesn't do that.
I remember for this one specifically, it was like a secret. They never once mentioned, that Leonard Nimoy. He's not in any of the promo stuff or anything like that.
It was a surprise.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, by the
way. So yeah, I like the film. I thought it was great. The cast, like you guys were mentioning, and just everything about it was just a nice refresh to the whole series, in my opinion. Especially when we just watched the other films too. You bring in a lot of stuff from the other movies, other sites.
I think it helped.
Yeah,
honestly,
it makes this one kind of grander, like Nabil was saying earlier. So
there was times I was getting like goosebumps a little bit. I was getting the chills during some scenes. I was like, "Oh, this is cool."
Yeah, just a bigger scope.
It did not happen during Nemesis for me. Just want to let you guys know personally.
It wasn't working.
Yeah, just want to be completely honest. I was like, oh, okay. Cool, Tom Hardy. You have your time to shine.
Well, let's dive a little deeper into the plot here. Nabil, what did you think about the plot, or did you have anything that kind of stuck out to you?
I've seen this film quite a few times, but it's been a few years since I've watched it last, and I can tell you that the one thing that really is a bit odd to me for me to rewatch was the motivation of the Romulans. Like, I understood where they were getting at about like taking it out on Spock, but then they like wanted to take it all out in Starfleet, and they wanted to go into Earth. Like it just seemed like it escalated a lot, and it's a very powerful mining ship. Apparently, I know it's like future technology, but I'm like, there's a lot going on that these guys are OP'd, and like doing all this shit.
Yeah, but it's explained. He's like he converted a mining ship into his basically like his time traveling Star Destroyer, I guess, or something.
Yeah. And then, like, they go into the black hole, and they've never exposed. I'm assuming it's like a whole thing. We don't know what's on the other side of the horizon, so like it was time travel. But then Spock Prime jumps through and is like propelled 25 years in the future, whatever else it is.
Yeah.
So like for him, it just happened. Like it was all they were like waiting for him.
Just moments.
Yeah, like it was that part of it was a bit like okay. I feel like the Romulans could have been a little stronger with the motivation. But
he hated Spock, so he took it out on the Vulcans first.
But he had 25 years to stew on it, though, right? I mean, like he's sitting there just
I
waiting.
get the Vulcan part, but it was like complete.
No, that's the Romulan part. He, like Mikey said, for Spock. Yes, there's moments, but they actually were traveling for like 25 plus years. Waiting for him to appear to get their revenge. So, like, obviously, it was just a bunch of hatred, I guess, basically.
No, I mean, I get the Vulcan part and seeing the planet destroy and everything. I'm talking about the Federation part. Like, they were there to help you. Like, he was just out against the Federation. I was like, that's a bit okay. Anyways, so there was just that part of it. But otherwise, like, I really enjoyed the plot with the main characters. Like, everything from that opening scene to showing Kirk, and even that fun bike scene at the beginning with him as a kid, he's being chased by a cop bike, but the race car that he's in, and then going on to everything, like all that. I loved what we saw with those characters just together in the dynamic. Like it felt very original, and I loved how they just changed things up a bit with the relationships with everybody as well. But I think that like the villain thing, it was a good villain. But at the same time, just like all the other kind of Star Trek, they're not. It's the weakest part, I think. Still, for me, is like
it worked a lot better for me than the previous ones.
Yeah, it worked. It's probably
he
the
wants
best
to destroy the Federation
because
he blames Spock and the Federation for the destruction of Vulcan. So, like, he talks about like he wants to ensure the future for Romulans, right? So that they're like the ultimate power. That's why he wants to destroy the Federation. On top of that, because he wants to stay on top because there's not a lot of Romulans left.
So, is he actually after the Federation, or more so just Earth? Because that's part of Spock.
He said he was going to jump to all the planets in the Federation.
I think he was going to start taking them out, but Earth was the first one because of the Academy. Okay. Yeah. I was like, don't destroy San Francisco. It's already in its tatters.
Right.
Destroy the Golden Gate Bridge. Stop it. It's been through enough.
There were whales there, guys.
Yeah, I was like, stop it. They're the only ones that could help.
James, do you have anything to add about the plot?
Yeah, I mean, the background was cool. Bill just getting all mad about Eric Bana. It's nice to see Eric Bana in a movie, man. It's been a while.
I felt bad for him because a lot of his films don't do very well.
They don't. It's just weird. Like he's trying his hardest, man. He's Australian, right?
Yeah.
So plot wise, I like the origin. I like the dynamics between Kirk and Spock too, showing how much that they butted heads in this, and that in this version they're not like quite the friendly right off the bat. Understanding each other and becoming chaps, as you might say, good chaps with each other. But I really like that kind of one is more very like Kirk in this one has he's somewhat like William Shatner's character from what I understand. He watched a lot of the episodes, and it's just like the womanizer part, but he's also like very headstrong. He rushes into danger without thinking much, so that's kind of his thing. It was kind of refreshing to see after seeing all this calculated stuff from Picard for the last like 4 or 5 movies, where it's like, oh, that guy's just like, oh, this is the way we should do it, and then Kirk's just like, I'm just gonna go to the seam of my pants and figure this out, right? And
then he did have a good plan though at the end, right, against the mining ship.
He did. It shows you that he naturally is the better choice as captain, right?
Yeah.
And I liked how you see him grow into that, and it's a nice little, how he goes into that role. He's very cocky still, but it's just like one of those things where he's got to learn and through certain things that are happening. And I liked how they switched it up even with Spock in this one, where him and Uhura have like a relationship, which is kind of interesting because in the original one there's Spock's so like I'm just me. In this one he shows a lot more of his human side, which is
more emotion for sure,
which was nice. And like I said, like Nabil said too, like everybody on this cast, they get a moment, man. they honestly get a moment. We get like even John Cho as Sulu. You get a little bit into him, like okay, apparently he knows how to fence, and like Chekhov in this one has his moment where he pulls him out of the falling from the sky, and even like Scotty. I think that's great casting with Simon Pegg being Scotty and just having his like where he finds him and what he brings to them. So the plot I thought it flows really well. It never overstays its welcome. I think it did a really good job.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The only thing I kind of had I don't want to say a bad because I like the movie overall, but I feel like some of the positions, like Uhura's like in the back of the ship, and she just happens to be in the front of the ship when they need a translator, and she's like, "Oh, you're taking over." And,
that's everybody though, right?
Yeah,
even Sulu. He's like, "You're not the guy." He's like, "He was sick, so now I'm the pilot." And you're like,
yeah.
"Oh, okay."
It's wartime, Mikey. That's how people get promoted so quickly. He became a first officer from a cadet. Kirk suddenly,
Even Bones, dude, they're like, he's dead. Now you're the senior one. He's like, I know. By the way, Carl Urban as McCoy, perfect.
This is where I fell in love with Carl Urban. This film right here, I was like, I love this guy. He needs to be in everything. He's like the best character in this movie.
And he quotes a lot of stuff from the old ones too. Like, he's bringing in all kinds of
damn it, man! What are you talking about?
Damn it, man! I'm a doctor.
Yeah, he does a great job of giving homage to the original actor as well.
I think really though this movie kind of hinges on the characters. Like even the storyline, I mean, it's decent, it's good. Like a lot of stuff happens, and like James was saying, the pacing's pretty good. But I feel like the characters, that's the moment you're really waiting for. They have a lot of, I don't know, just like emotional moments. I mean, like Spock's mom dies,
I call them
right?
like hero moments almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of those things here. So I mean, like Spock moms die, and then you have Uhura going into the elevator,
a little too close, stood a little too close, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, Winona Ryder, what are you doing, you crazy pooch?
This is when she finally started coming back a little bit. They're like, we'll throw you a bone.
This was like one of the first big roles I remember, because everyone's like, well, I haven't seen her movie in like a long time. Yeah. I was like, yeah, she's stealing stuff. That's why.
Yeah,
she's klepto. Yeah, she's klepto. Got issues.
So we've talked a little bit about the characters there. Do you guys have any? I'll just leave it open to both of you guys here. Do you guys have anything else about the characters? Any of them that you want to talk about?
Bruce Greenwood's really good as Christopher Pike, by the way.
Yeah, it was a great choice.
I love how he's like the somewhat father figure to Kirk, how he kind of notices when he sees him getting his ass beat in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like brutally too, by the way. I was like, man, that's a lot of blood. So, but I like how he tells him like, your dad wouldn't have wanted this. This is probably the best route for you. And then later although they never show him taking that bug back out of him, by the way. Kept thinking about it after watching this one. I'm like, hey, they never took the bug back out, did they?
Maybe off camera. Yeah.
Or was it, that might have been a deleted scene where they're like, hey, you got something crawling in you. But
this seems kind of out of it when they go save him a little bit.
They do.
Or maybe it's still inside of him.
I mean, I think Chris Pine was a really good choice for Kirk. And I got to say, just having Leonard Nimoy come back too was pretty awesome as Spock Prime. It's just kind of one of those like, whoa. Just as I was talking about, like that's the connection to the original series, and it's kind of nice just to see that happen where it's still acknowledging that this is just another timeline thing, which is kind of cool. So
I like the fake out.
He has heartfelt moments with both Kirk and Spock. Well, not Spock Prime, but
he's kind of funny with it though, right?
All right.
I like how he tricked Jim. He's just like, I told him if like we met, like something would crazy happen. He's like, and he believed you? He's like, He's like, yeah, I guess. And I was like, oh dang. But it was cool that I love the part where he's like, wait, you're not the captain? Like he's shocked.
Yeah.
That the timeline has switched so much. He's like, oh man, you guys gotta get that fixed. He's like, he being captain, even he knows. He's like, that's not a good thing at all. So, and shout out Chris Pine and John Cho, fellow UC Berkeley alumni.
Well, James, earlier when you were going over the brief summary here that you liked, you said you liked the overall look of the film. Did you have anything you wanted to
explosions, Mikey?
Explosions.
So much explosions, even from the get-go. I saw this on disc. I think you guys did too.
Yeah.
Man, the sound was amazing on this one, man.
Really good.
Solid.
Man, it was awesome. Just the shot of like the torpedoes coming from Nero's ship and how they kind of like spread apart or something. And I was like, and then the Enterprise coming out of the like Saturn's like atmosphere or something, dude. There's some scenes in here that look really good. I got goosebumps when out of nowhere you think Spock's going to sacrifice himself, and then they're like, "Oh, there's another ship coming," and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, why am I so hyped for this? And then the Enterprise shows up and it's just blowing all this stuff out. I was just like, oh man, go bring a tear to my eye. But yeah, it looked good, Mikey. They put some money into this. You could tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how like shocked Nero is. He's like, fire everything, and he's just like going over the top and everything like that. The action was really good.
Very
in this one too,
Eric fan of him. Very Eric fan. Yeah. Not since he was Hector in Troy. I've seen such great acting.
All right, so to kind of end things off here, you guys have any scenes that you liked that's kind of stood out to you that you want to talk about?
I love the scene on the drill. That first scene that they go into it and they start doing the battle over there, and like
good too.
Yeah, like the color coordinating of the.
Why are they color coded though, right?
They're all different shirts, right?
It's not necessary. It's not necessary though.
And then like the main, I don't remember the character's name, but he basically had the charges and he killed himself because he was a little too cocky with the drop.
Dude, he just kept going. It made no sense. I said, dude, pull your shoe, man. What are you doing?
Yep.
He gets like murdered too, like dead.
Sucked under the laser.
Like, yeah, dude, he gets tied and then wrapped around and looped right back into the flare. Like, bye bye. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, that whole battle sequence is pretty dope. And then, like you mentioned earlier, James, about the about Sulu busting out the swords and actually having a chance to do a little, sword fighting over there. That was pretty dope.
It is funny because Kirk asked him, like, he's like, "What's your hand-to-hand combat experience?" He's like, "Fencing," and he's like, his face he gives him is like, we got a problem here."
Yeah, really? He just looked at him like, really?
He gave him like a really. Like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, we'll be fine. Like,
right.
Okay. It's funny though. Kirk in this whole movie is just getting his ass kicked though.
Oh, yeah,
basically,
consistently just getting whooped. Like, I'm like, this guy got a lot of blood and bruises. So,
and always sweaty, just always sweaty in this movie.
That might also just be the lens flare coming off. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I really like the Kirk and Spock trial. I don't know if it's trial, but you know what I'm talking about when they're like kind of like
he got in trouble.
Yeah, he got in trouble for cheating.
Kobayashi Maru or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's like,
so it was really good. Like they're like, you kind of see their characters kind of coming out a little bit in that, since we know them from the past already.
Kirk's really like cocky and stuff.
Well, by the way, that Kobayashi Maru scenario, that's referenced in the original films, where he's the only person to have beaten it. And they're showing it in here how he beat, because he cheated.
I think they brought that up though.
Khan, right?
I think they did.
Khan,
I think he brought it up. He's like, it's because, and Spock calls him out. It's like Spock knows that's what he did, but he's like, that's the only way he did it.
Yeah, but they never really show it, and then this film they actually show how he cheated.
I mean, it's pretty obvious.
He's super nonchalant about it too. Like, don't worry about it.
Apple. He's like, oh, are there or are there not? Their shields are down now. Okay, so. He tells him to like save some of the torpedoes. He's like, let's not overuse it.
Let's waste our ammo.
Yeah. So,
all right. Well, let's give a rating and kind of move on here. James, what star rating did you give this one, and would you recommend it?
I would give this one 4.5 stars. I know it's probably a little high, but I really enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun watching this. I watched it with my dad. First time watching it, he had no idea about this one. He's like, when did this come out? I was like, 2009. Randomly, he's like, this is way better than the other ones. I was like, I know. So, yeah, 4.5. Check it out. If you even remotely like anything sci-fi, I think even non-Star Trek fans will find something to like here. I think it's an enjoyable film for people to. You can even use it as a jumping off point, which is probably, blasphemy to Trek fans. They're like, what do you mean? But it was a good time overall. So check it out, John.
Nabil, what's your score?
Yeah, I'm rating this quite high too. Actually, especially after talking about it, I'm at 4.5 stars, and I totally agree. This is definitely a good, solid sci-fi film, and it's a good action flick, and you have a fun time with a bunch of different characters you can relate with. So definitely worth the watch. Yeah,
I'm a little lower. I'm at 4, so it's not that much lower, but I agree with you guys. I mean, I feel like this is a good one you could start off on. Even if you didn't like the other Star Treks, I feel like you could like this one. So it's a definite recommend. Everybody should watch this one, in my opinion.
Nice. Let's move on now to our main review of Godzilla vs. Biollante.
あれはただの植物ではない。ビオランテだ。
植物にゴジラ細胞を融合させただけじゃない。
人間の細胞まで自己再生能力の遺伝子を持ったゴジラ細胞で
Godzilla vs. Biollante, released in 1989, is sitting at 73% on Rotten Tomatoes. Scientists experiment with Godzilla's cells, creating a new life form, Biollante, or is it Biollante? I don't know. They speak Japanese all the time. It's really hard to figure it out. A massive plant-like creature infused with human and kaiju DNA. As Godzilla escapes from his volcanic prison and rampages across Japan, Biollante evolves into a monstrous opponent. Meanwhile, a genetic arms race unfolds with terrorists and the military vying to control over Godzilla's DNA. The battle between the king of the monsters and this bizarre plant-based rival tests the limits of science and nature. This is written and directed by Kazuki Omori, who also did several Godzilla films after this, including Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, and Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla throughout the early 90s. Like I said, this was released on December 16th, 1989 in Japan, but this was not released into America until 1992, directly on VHS, and then the following year on Laserdisc. It had a budget of $4.5 million and only made $6.9 million, so this is why this was not released theatrically out here in North America. So here we go. Here's the characters. We have Koji Takahashi as Dr. Shiragami, Toru Minegishi as Lieutenant Goro Kondo, Kuhitu Mitumura as Dr. Kazuhito Kirishima, Yoshika Tanaka as Asuka Akushi, Megumi Odaka as Miki Saigua, and Masanobu Takashima as STF Commander Hayoto, as well as Manjot Betty as John Lee. He's the one foreign guy that reminded me of Nabil. Let's start with you, Mikey. Any history with this film at all? Are you a Godzilla fan?
I originally watched this on Laserdisc. No, I didn't. I have actually not seen this one. I haven't seen this one at all. I've watched a lot of the Godzillas, but I haven't seen this one. I did have a Laserdisc, though. I didn't realize this one was on Laserdisc. So we had a lot of older films. I have watched, I think, another Godzilla on Laserdisc, but not this one. So, but yeah, I watched a lot of them, just not this one.
Yeah, this is considered like the Heisei era of films, which started with this is like the second film in it. So like the beginning is the first movie is like The Return of Godzilla. It's a 1984 film, and that's actually showing you the scenes at the beginning of this film. And this is a direct sequel to it. So, what about you, Nabil?
Nope, never seen it. This is all new to me. And have you watched
any of the older ones though?
Just the original. Oh, wow. I've seen once, yeah. And that was a long time ago.
Gotcha. So none of the other eras. There's like several of them. That's why. So.
Right. Yeah, I know it was like 4 different or 5 different eras before they went to what we have now. Yeah. So anything before the 0, and then of course the US reboots.
That's about Godzilla 98, but yeah.
No, not 98. The reboots. Yeah. So this is all new to me.
Trying, okay. He's trying.
He was.
Yeah. No, I've never seen it as well. I just kind of sparked my interest because Criterion just did a remake or a 4K remaster. Just kind of cool, just to kind of jump into that. And I would say I'm becoming more of a Godzilla fan. It's definitely, I feel like an acquired taste. You kind of almost have to look past a lot of things in order to enjoy a lot of these movies, which is mostly like, hey, I'm just here to see Godzilla destroy stuff and fight things, and kind of everything else is kind of like the secondary to it. Let's jump into it then. Nabil, what did you think about this film?
I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to.
I was laughing quite a bit. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, there's cheese. They all do. This is set in the 80s. I could probably say this was an early 80s, even though this came out in 89. I could feel like it's an older 80s film, but it was. Yeah, it's not though. It's like 89. Okay, but I actually had a pretty good time.
These things out pretty quick, honestly.
Oh, were they big turnarounds?
Yeah, you can tell for some of it. I think when they were speaking English a lot of times, I was like, oh.
Well, and then I had to turn on the subtitles for the English because I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this.
Some of them were hard, man. Even I was just like kind of like really concentrating. I was like, oh, okay. So he's trying to get the DNA scale? Okay. Who's this guy from an 80s music video killing everybody?
I was like, so these are supposed to be Arabs, okay? And these are Americans? Why is he looking Japanese?
I'm not sure if he's struggling to speak English.
Yeah.
Okay. And they still had like the Japanese writing.
Yeah.
Right. Toho was like, oh no, we're going to cover everybody on this one. Trust me. What did you think, Mikey?
I ended up liking this one pretty well too. There's like you said, you kind of have to look past some stuff here. I didn't get the whole secret agent thing going through that kind of threw me off a little bit. But overall, it was a decent storyline. There was some monster battles, and that's what you kind of expect from Godzilla's for the most part. So enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That was good.
I did too, surprisingly. Like I said, it was a lot of fun just watching it. Like I had to kind of look past some things. It's like, dude, you have like an evil, like not even evil, like the dude, Dr. Shirogami is literally making a creature based on the Godzilla DNA, plant DNA, and then like the cells from his daughter, right? Which is like, if you think about it, kind of creepy.
Oh, messed up.
And then the other doctor's just like, let me help you. He's like, he's brilliant, you know? And it's just like, everyone's cool with this? And then you have like Miki, who's like a psychic, and you're just supposed to kind of roll with it, right?
And they had all the kids too, right? It's like, that's kind of weird.
I like that scene actually where they're like, the kids are like, hey, what was the dreams you guys had? And they all had like photos of Godzilla. I was like, that's a really cool scene actually.
All right.
I was like, a lot of these kids draw better than me. So, I'm like, huh. So what did you think about the plot? Did it work overall? How was the pacing? Anything stand out to you? Let's start with you, Mikey.
I thought it was a little slow, but overall, I like what they did. I mean, there's that whole subplot you just went over where they're kind of building Biollante in kind of creating it out of his daughter's soul or whatever they were trying to talk about.
It's almost a subplot though, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Definitely subplot.
For being featured on like as a versus, it's like they have a lot more to do with like the espionage of like, oh, because we took his DNA, like, you know, it's really about these terrorists that are trying to take it, and then they're like, oh, if you don't give us the rest of this or the formula, we're gonna wake up Godzilla. It's like, okay, that's a little wild, right? So
yeah, there was like a push for power, right? A little bit between different companies and different doctors and
the Arabs. Yeah, you can say it. You can say it.
Yeah, it was my people. We were in a desert.
They make it
overall, it was
very abundantly quick.
Yeah.
But overall, it was like kind of weird. It's like, okay, they have this stuff. This guy's like shooting the briefcase out of their hand, and he's taking the briefcase, and like, and it happens like 3 times in the movie.
He just shows up every time, man.
Every single time, he's just there for some reason.
He just rolls up in his car, and he's like, "Yeah, it's me. What about it?" He's just wearing sunglasses too.
Well, I thought they should do a little bit more with Godzilla because I mean, they kind of go through like a whole elaborate plot like they always do to kind of get rid of him, right? But Biollante was really like I feel like almost the main piece of this movie, like.
Was
more
it?
of a, I mean, like as far as monsters go, there's more focus on that than there is on Godzilla, in my opinion.
Almost like a secondary character.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, Godzilla comes up at the end, right? He's just like walking in the water, and they have a couple action scenes with them. But there's like a whole subplot to go with Biollante.
Yeah, I mean, they reawaken him. He's going through. He fights Biollante, defeats it for the first time, and then he's headed toward like a reactor. And they're like, "Oh no, we have to like divert him." And they attack him with the X2 machine, which it's winning at first, but then Godzilla destroys it. He's like, "Nope, out of my face." And then, but Miki uses her powers to like tell him to go to Osaka instead. Divert him there, and that's when they're kind of like, "Hey, what if we set him up with this?" So there's a lot of like, it's pretty corny, obviously, but.
Yeah, I just feel like they didn't do that much with Godzilla.
I feel the opposite. I feel like Biollante was there for, like James said, that one fight scene, and it took forever to get to that part, and then he disappears until the very end where he shows up again. It's like, rebirth.
Biollante Prime.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, that's it? Like, for Godzilla cross something, it seems a bit much, not as much of an interaction between the two of them.
Yeah, but what I was saying is like it's more of the plot goes towards Biollante, right? So
Yeah,
he's not
building
actually in the movie
towards
that much, or she, I guess.
Well,
not
I mean,
in the movie, but
is that
like,
true though? Because technically the plot is about Godzilla's DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
And it's the companies trying to like, you got the terrorist group and the military both trying to like get control over it. So it still is the main plot. It's just not as direct, maybe, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anything on that else, Nabil?
Yeah, I think that the whole ESP thing is weird. That just is something that they accept as a thing.
She's
So,
like in every Heisei
is she?
film going forward, by the way. Yeah, she's in like a lot of them. She's a recurring character.
I'm like, okay, I guess they're just like telepaths. And she like mind melds with Godzilla for a little bit, and then I think like what came of it, I don't know what came. Like she just kind of stopped him for a little bit, and then he just continued on afterwards. He's like, all right, that was cool. Let's move on.
There was like 3 scenes where he pops up, and I was like, James is saying hi right now. Hi.
Yeah,
I
there's
can
a lot
just
of
tell
like,
I'm saying it. There's
yeah,
like 3 or 4 scenes like
there's
that.
a lot of shots where they just showed his face, like, "Hey there, how's it going? Just got water dripping down my face. Talk to you later." I was like, he's adorable. Why would you ever want to fight him? He just looks like a big old
I mean,
lizard person.
it's a cute depiction of him. He's a little lizard kind of thing looking like. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, I just stare at him.
I thought it was like getting into characters here, guys. Like Dr. Shirogami, like I said, kind of a mad scientist, technically.
Kinda, yeah.
He makes Biollante, which is like I said, it's a cross between all three. I did like from Biollante its second form, by the way, where
Yes.
it kind of evolves at the end. That's more of like the actual kind of like the bigger fight between Godzilla and him. But even though Godzilla just pretty much owns him still, or her, sorry, you're right, it's her. And then when she dies, it's it has an image of Emily or whatever, like he goes up. I was watching a review on it. The guy was like, "Oh, then her high school photo pops up and disappears into heaven." And good, like, that's a good description. So
Yeah.
What about you guys? I'll keep it open on this. What's your thoughts on Biollante, Godzilla? What'd you think of it all? What'd you think about even Dr. Kirishima and Asuka Okochi, who's like Miki's like mentor or teacher, I think, or something?
Yeah.
I don't really know, but like
think it's
they
like
have
a
like a
mentor.
slight romance together, and that's another subplot where you're like, all right, kind of adding a lot here. So
Well, I like how the doctors like kind of second guess like Biollante and Godzilla, and they're almost like we've become the monsters ourselves, right? So it was kind of put a little aspect onto some of the character. I don't remember which doctor it is actually, to be honest. At the end, when he's like, "I've become the monster myself," because he made Biollante. So I think it was Shirogami.
I think it's Shirogami. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I liked how that they are actually like contemplating throughout the whole film. It's like, is it right to even do these kind of things, making these weapons with Godzilla's cells and such? And like the
I feel like
whole
they do a
political
lot of
aspect.
those kind of things, Mikey, in the
Yeah.
Godzilla films.
Yeah, that's
There's
that
always,
focus more on
like I
the
thought.
ethical thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like a big theme with a lot of these movies. Even if it's like ultimately it's a kaiju film, right? But they always have like an underlying message about like nuclear war, or like you guys said, like what's the ethical thing to truly do? And in this case, it's like, can we use this as like a bionuclear weapon, or like, is it okay that we've used this to like manipulate cells of a plant plus a young girl that died and create like a plant creature thing, So it's
I think it was
ultimately kinda
Kishihira.
silly.
I mean, he was saying like, if we don't do it, somebody else will, right? So they even kind of
Yeah,
take
he's
that
really
aspect
big
from
on
that
it.
point of view. Yeah.
He's like the young, like hotshot new guy. He's like, yeah, I'll help him out though, I guess. He's having like lunch with Ahsoka, and he's just kind of like bragging a little bit. He's like, yeah, I mean, it's possible.
It's cocky.
The military's
Cocky.
pretty funny.
He said, "I'm going to MIT."
Yeah, he's like, I got accepted again. So I love the fight scene between Manjot and the two other guys, by the way. It is one of the most like non-climax, like when they find him in the office, like, hey, give that back. And there's like no music, and they're just fighting, and you can just hear the breathing, and they're struggling. And it's almost comical. They make like a cartoon noise where they bonk him on the head, but he's wearing a hard hat.
Yeah,
so it doesn't
they
actually make any
did.
sense.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I didn't notice it until you
And
said
he's
it.
wearing a helmet that has a different
Go
name. to what the
boing, and then he
facility
knocks
is.
him out. He's like, ha, 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 we got it. That guy's just like the definition of cool, though. Every scene, even the beginning where the army is chasing after those guys that steal the DNA.
Yeah.
Like this dude pops up out of nowhere. He's like this mysterious guy wearing like a blazer and sunglasses at night.
It's like
Has-
Cobra. He reminded me of Stallone a little bit, like
Yeah,
with the look.
Corey Hart, I guess technically, right?
Corey Hart.
Where
Yeah.
wears his sunglasses at night.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I thought Cobra big time too by the end of it.
Yeah.
Just the way that he was doing stuff. And dude, he's just taking guys out though, man. This guy's like an assassin. He's once again, I'm not trying, the Arabs,
I mean,
he's kinda
Japanese
he's
Arab.
their
I don't. Yeah.
he's like their hitman though, I believe.
Kind
like
of.
that company. Like he's their go-to guy. That's him.
I mean, take out
so-
the 3 guys with like 3 bullets in like the very first
Oh
time you
yeah,
see
it's
them.
like one
He's
shot.
just like boom, 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 and they're all like dead. And you're like, wow. Okay.
And when he talks though, the most broken English I've ever heard in my life. Struggled to understand what he was doing.
Even the Americans that were at the beginning of the,
In the van,
cleanup,
in the van?
yeah, I was like, you guys aren't American though, right? Like they're something else. I
What
was
do you mean?
like,
They're U.S. government agents, man. An ice
all
cream
the
truck,
broken
right?
language.
It's really bad, but it
Yeah.
kind of adds to the charm of the film. You're like, oh, they're
Yeah.
trying. These guys are definitely English is not their first language, even though they're supposed to be American CIA agents, right?
Right.
Okay. So what did you guys think about the overall look though with the remaster? So the 4K, did it look good for you guys, Bill?
I think it looked beautiful. I thought that was like it was a good remaster. I definitely because it probably Criterion they gave it special care, but like
I'm assuming.
the fidelity as a whole just was great. Like you could tell the film was dated, obviously, but also it was just so clear, like you'd be seeing it in the cinema. It was really good.
What about you, Mikey?
Yeah, agreed. I thought it looked really nice. I didn't really notice the sound too much on this one here, but the photo quality, like the picture quality, was really nice.
I think the sound was pretty good. Picture quality wise, I think the HDR is a little dark on this one. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, there's some really dark scenes for sure.
It's a little dim on the HDR. I think having just HDR 10, not Dolby Vision, kind of hurt it a little bit. But overall, a very clean fix to it all, though. The way that it looked, it was really nice looking. So I got to ask you guys, just for the action then, did it deliver on the Godzilla front? Start with you, Mikey.
I think so. I really liked when they used like the electricity stuff. They were like trying to like raise its temperature or something like that. Yeah, like they had like
were they using they're reversing the radar stuff or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like guy has like the most batshit like things. Like, what if we do this? And then it was gonna create this. Oh, I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, that's.
But it looked cool. Like I liked the whole electric ball things that were coming out, the little beams and shit. And everything was just flying around, so it was crazy. It was
Miki
nice.
brought him to Osaka instead. She's like, I'll bring him to a less populated area.
They always seem to have a water action scene too, and they always look pretty cool.
Dude, it's kind of cool how they filmed a lot of it. A lot of it's miniatures, obviously.
Yeah.
Like a majority of it. Even like we get shots where we have real shots of a helicopter, but then there's obviously a model of a helicopter with like a camera attached to it, giving you a perspective of like a helicopter zooming in on Godzilla, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
It is cool though. It's all practical effects for the most part. Outside, obviously he wasn't really shooting like beams out of his his mouth in real life, just as a heads up. But I thought it was cool. I thought his fight, like I said, with Biollante at the end was cool.
Yeah, I like that one track they did, like where the track shot in Osaka when he was going down there, and they kind of like had an upward angle of him, and they were just kind of showing him track through the city.
It looks good, actually.
That was a really good scene that they did with some good camera work.
Because obviously, it's just it's a scene in the background that was filmed, and then they superimposed another scene, like another shot in front of it too. They do a shot of that too earlier in the film where someone's on like a rooftop and they're looking out and they sees Godzilla destroying the city or fighting Biollante.
Yeah.
And it looks really good, actually. I don't know if they clean that up because I have a feeling it probably didn't look that good back then.
Maybe. But the
maybe
camera
they clean that up a little bit.
Anytime they had those close-ups, because they did spend a lot of time with him destroying the cities, and those camera works were
close up of his face. Really well done.
I mean, he destroyed that one building with the guy in there who just like shot it right in his mouth. Shot the
dude, he
just and just like
did nothing to him. By the way, I'm like, and you wasted this shot from the bazooka,
right?
And now
that was the high
dead.
scene I was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Was it?
He just looks in the windows like, hey, and then he destroys the whole building.
Blew it up. He's like, and now you will die too.
There was a scene he walked right through a parking structure, like a parking garage, and it's just like a casual walkthrough and just crumbles in front of him. I'm just like, it's fucking epic.
Yeah. I gotta ask, what did you guys think of the ending? I thought it was hilarious. You think it's all over. Biolante's been killed. Like I said, the image of her high school photo floats into the air. And then, I don't know where they're kind of, it seems like it's going to just end, right? And you're like, oh, it's going to end now. They're kind of like, Dr. Shiragami understood, like, hey, I was truly the monster, right? Or something.
Yeah.
And then you get a little bit of like Kirishima and Asuka, like they're talking like, hey, maybe we can go on trips together. And I'm like, oh, right? And then out of nowhere, John Lee, our fucking boy, comes up and just blasts Dr. Shiragami out of nowhere for no reason, really. It's already, everything's done, and he just shoots him. And I was like,
he was told to kill him, to make sure it doesn't
yeah, but
get
it's like, dude, they already lost. That's true, I guess. I thought it was just random.
No one else can. Yeah.
That they still chose to show that, though.
Yeah.
Like, at the very end of the movie. It's like, dang, dude, I thought the movie was done already. Like, we're getting another ending?
Or how he dies when John Lee goes on top of the thunder, whatever, lightning maker, and it just disintegrates. I was like, okay.
It's really quick, too. It's not like anything else. Just really quick.
It's pretty fast. Yeah. I knew that was going to happen, though. I was like, he's going to get killed in this thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, they chase him down. They have, once again, like a struggle between two guys is just, you got to add some action music or something, man. It's just weird. Like, seeing two two kids fighting in a parking lot or something. I'm like, okay, man, just break it up, man. What are you guys doing?
Honestly,
Well,
maybe that's why I didn't
Suka
recognize the sound, because there was like really not that much music in the whole thing. As far as some of the scenes, they were just missing
except
music.
for the Godzilla scene when they showed
Yeah.
the theme song.
I liked when they did the Godzilla theme song.
Yeah,
I
I
was
love
like,
the theme
that's
song.
cool. Me
Yeah.
too. I was like, that works really well. We'll start with you, Mikey. What is your overall rating, and who would you recommend it or not recommend it to?
I get this one 3. I thought it was interesting enough, and it's Godzilla enough for people that like Godzilla to want to watch it. So if you like Godzilla, give it a look.
Nice. What about you, Nabil?
I gave this 3.5 stars. I definitely think it's worth watching the Criterion Collection 4K. That just really upped it. Visually, it's really good, and it's a cheesy film, but I could see why they'd want to remaster it. There's a lot of cool camera things they're doing over here,
Which is
and a lot
nice,
of
'cause
kind of things. Yeah,
I can only imagine the original cut of these things are probably rough.
yeah, they're
too.
probably pretty bad. So they spent a
Especially-
lot of time making this look just right, and the plot's ridiculous, but they're all kind of ridiculous. So you're getting
Yeah.
into that already, knowing that. But it was good.
Yeah, I give it 3.5 as well. I think even casually, if you like Godzilla, I think you have to like it just a little bit to kind of enjoy it. But it's definitely got that cheesy 80s feel to it all. I think it was well worth a purchase of getting the Criterion 4K disc. And honestly, it'd probably be a movie I check again down the line, because I got a strange feeling one day I'm going to work my way through all these movies. So, yeah.
It's a lot of them. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Of them.
Oh, I'm fully aware, Mikey. Anyways, that's the end of the podcast. We appreciate you all for tuning in. Mikey, let them know how they can reach us.
You can listen and follow us on your preferred podcast platform. We're everywhere. For a convenient link to all our social media channels, visit our link tree /MoviePalsPod. That's linktr.ee/MoviePalsPod. And remember to hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode in this timeline or the next. Plus, catch us on TikTok for sneak peeks of upcoming episodes and more exciting movie content. Follow us at MoviePalsPod.
And make sure to tune in episode number 196, where we will be reviewing the new film Warfare, as well as continuing into our voyage of Star Trek with a review of Star Trek Into Darkness.
Thank you, Nabil. This is James.
Nabil.
And Mikey.
Have a great one.